Tuhle ten chlap, Thinking Man z Valo, 100 000 odběratelů, dobrý kanál jako blázen na Valorant, sám na to občas koukám. Udělal, když 1 ku 100 000 Valorant šance se stane a je to o Go Next. Podíváme se na to, 13 minut to má. Prohráli každý jedno anti jako Go Next, už chápu. Už chápu. Už to chápu. To název toho videa. To je šílený.
Doesn't have guns and doesn't have shields and doesn't have utility very often. And therefore that makes this second round after a pistol round often the most boring round because the team with all the money and all the guns
prohrajou.
The round and they're often going to win
it jako by měli prohrát, ano. Ještě když je outlaw ve hře. Šance na vyhraní druhého kola je 9,5%. Radši skočím z útesu jako G2. Robloxu, ve Valorantu.
Game is something that you've probably seen a team do. But what about losing 2 in a row of those kind of rounds? That's something that you may have only seen a couple times happen.
Kolik brali oni za sebou, někdo brali 10 za sebou třeba.
But what about 3 in a row? 3 in a row is something that you probably can't recall any team having that happen to them ever. And what about 4 in a row? 4 in a row is something that probably just has never happened before. What about 5 in a row?
5 za sebou.
5 in a row is surely so inconceivable that in Valorant's short history, surely that hasn't happened. And no, I don't think it had happened until now. Because to Go Next.
Prostě Go Next, ale však jsme udělali historii nejvíc nepravděpodobných eventů. To je extrém.
They were competing in the EMEA Ascension tournament. It started well for them, but then they played against CGN. And in this game versus CGN,
to je strašný.
They won both pistols on bind.
To je strašný. Všechno to mám na YouTube, no jakoby to je moje reakce na ty druhý kolo, kámo, to jako.
Both second rounds. They then came to Abyss.
To je šílenost.
And they won the first pistol and they lost the second round. So let's take a look at their next game, which happened against Desire the very next day. And in the first map, well, they actually didn't win any pistols and they lost 13-1. But in the second map, they won both pistols. And again, they lost both second rounds. That means that Go Next Esports somehow managed to lose 5 second rounds in a row. And this is about equivalent to flipping heads 17 times with a fair coin. And now, of course, I'm going to show you all of these rounds. And the thing is, there is actually to learn from this as well.
Můžeme se něco naučit. Tady ukáže, čí to byl problém. Ukáže, čí to byly chyby. No, jedno kolo na tom Abyssu si přesně vybavuju, to byl Alešek, co tam vyletěl.
Well, you can understand how you should and should not be playing second rounds from both.
A pak tam byl Zeke, strašně krát špatně mi přišlo.
Team's perspective. Let's start with the very first one that
happened. Na tom Iceboxu vypnul hrozně Zeke.
On bind, round number 2 here against CGN. And so the stage is set. We've got Go Next, who have their full buy. You got CGN, who only have a Marshall and keep your eye on
Marshall ale jako dal dobrý, tady ten Marshall dal dobrý. Tohle nebylo zase tak jako šíleně špatně prohraný anti jako. To až potom ty další s těma klasikama.
Quite a few of these rounds actually. But let's dive into the round then and see what happened. And you would think, how do most teams lose these second rounds? Well, they often lose the first kill. Well, not.
A ten Marshall někdo sebral, myslím, ten Marshall někdo sebral, ale.
As you just saw, they actually get the first kill here, Go Next, so you'd think that they'd be absolutely fine. But this Marshall, this is the thing. Maybe there is some things to learn. Maybe teams buy a Marshall because you know what might happen. Well, I'll tell you what might happen in just a bit if we play this a bit faster.
Kdo to rovnul, kámo?
He's gonna walk up on his own, and guess what he's gonna do? He's gonna hit this shot. Boom, right there. And now we're in a 4v4.
Jako tohle je prostě, jako to ani neberu jako trou, tohle není trou, někdo ten short musí koukat, jako no.
The thing is, you're still in a 4v4, right? They still should be favored to win the round at this point. But again, now all it takes is one player making a mistake, and all of a sudden you're in a lot of trouble.
About always lurking. Now down to a 4v4.
4v4 se stalo co? Ale Šeky dostal? Ne, podle mě ne. Jo, dostal tady. Jako tohle, ale tohle actually nechci jako ničemu to nepomůže budu Aleškovi jako nějak nadávat nebo něco, ale pamatuju si, že jsme měli strašný problém s podobnými věcma a dělal jsem to i já, jsem to kontroloval, že prostě máš v hlavě nutkání, že proti EQ chceš srovnávat, tady to není srovnat, tady to je srovnat, 4-4. A prostě když to bylo 4v5, tak nám vždycky přeplo, včetně mě, protože jsme chtěli srovnat proti EQ a jakoby ty nepotřebuješ ani udělat žádný play většinou proti EQ, ty bys měl to furt vyhrát na to, že máš prostě utility a zbraně a tady prostě Alešek podle mě to pravidlo jako ne to, no. Nespomněl si na něj, jsme ho s tím měli problém. A prostě Profekt stahuje, ale Alešek jde dopředu, to je hodně zvláštní.
An open position that allows for a gun to go into the opponent's hands, a huge opportunity.
So we saw the Marshal do damage there as well, but now let's maybe talk about the gun choice for Go Next, because the problem is we're in a 3v4 now, but look at their guns. They're now retaking an outlaw, a judge, and a Marshal. So maybe this is a lesson as well for when you win this second round, is be careful with what guns.
Podle mě tohle je v pohodě. Outlaw v pohodě, Judge extrémně v pohodě. Takže extrémně když hrál hůku, prostě tohle je úplně normální. Tohle je troll. Tohle je total troll za mě, total troll. Tohle jako kdyby Muffin udělal, tak ho tam seřvem na 17 dob, jako přísahám. Ani by to neudělal, jo, jako. Tohle je totální blbost za mě. Na EKčku, no, aby byly náhy do tělíčku, no. Marshall s velkým armorem, kámo, tak to je...
Attacking side, they have fallen back passive and already put another on the death toll.
One enemy remaining.
Oh, it's a bit of chaos leaving.
Držte malem klašnu, bo... Molotov.
One more player to find. Oh, the Molly's got it across the line.
Moc dobrý video zatím, jako ten Thinking Mono actually je dobrý. On byl v Ascendu, když já jsem hrál. Reagovali na moje hry, no, to bylo...
So that was number 1, now let's move to number 2, round number 14 here of Bind, and in this one let's take a look at their buy again. So obviously on the attack side here, bit more aggressive, we got 2 rifles.
To ten nákup podle mě dobrý, či? Podle mě nákup good.
Bulldog, Spected, will the one ghost save this time? But
jako clean nákup podle mě.
Already we're making a big mistake. Okay, and what's our
big mistake? Možná, že Viper nemá odpad, tak to je jedno. Takže hraju default.
Big mistake this time? Well, the big mistake is that our Viper has a rifle but is on their own. Right? This in 2024 is unacceptable. Okay? Especially when you have the buy that they have, right? If one guy is gonna have a ghost, give it to the guy who's on his own. Right?
Okay, souhlasím, že Lurka by měl, že na Lurk anti jako Lurk by měl být ghost, no. Ale jako zase ten Profik je na takovém místě, ale pohodě, Smalson, pohodě. A je tam slyšet voice i hra, to pohodám. Na 1v5, pokud máš na tohleto videjko, tak doufám, že jsi viděl na Enterprise 1v5.
Okay.
Miky, tohle není to, co píšeš, to slovo na k, tohle to je naučný video, na který se ty speciálně musíš podívat. Pojďme na to, let's go.
Because obviously, when you're out here on your own, he's not ever going to be able to try and aggressively take space, right? So, for instance, if they've stacked B, he's just...
He's
never going to be walking up with just a rifle on his own. The thing is, what actually does end up happening is they do start with a default towards B. They don't like it, you know, for whatever reason. They decide we don't like this. And our Viper here is pushed up, right? So these guys hear some noise out towards B. The rotates come across. But this guy just decides, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to walk up. He's got a sheriff, we're gonna come back, but again, we've got our Viper here who can't do anything because they got a rifle, so they can't, you know, afford to do anything. Instead, what we could have done is, hey, let's give this guy the ghost, give our Gecko the rifle, because the Gecko's gonna be with the team and have the spike, and so that's important. Give this Viper the ghost so that they can go off lurking, whatever, but I guess not, because guess what? We're playing for our own stats, and that's gonna cost us this entire game.
Co? Že hrajou na staty, what?
Although I'm assuming he'll probably be back on Sentinel when they head over to Abyss. And wow, there you go already. Anguist with the start.
Now from here, it must be said that Anguist is going to absolutely pop off in this round. And of course, this can happen every so often, right?
Even still, it becomes a much tougher task coming into a retake with pistols than it was finding that opener, but maybe not for Anguist. Already a second on the board. Probably looking at his teammates, wondering when they're going to make...
Ale však neměl vůbec svůj den, kamo, Aleš tady, kamo, je strašně pasivní, jakože... Next level pasivní Alex tady s tou rejskou na to, že to je Alex prostě. Na to, že tady Minny chce se Zíkem double peakovat čavry, když mají prostě Bulldog a Spectru a Aleš má Fantoma, tak prostě jakoby, nevím, neměl prostě den, no. Jak by šel Alex tam už dávno má sám klidně.
a second on the board. They're probably looking at his teammates, wondering when they're going to make their face known, make their push, and well, he might just do it all. Davi's going to steal away the ace, but now it's left on to Profek, trying to spam, but I think realizing that the Vandal holds much more value.
But again, let's learn from CGN's side of how do you win these second rounds, and the truth is, you're often going to win through a sheriff or a marshal, as we've seen already from CGN, right? And I think a lot of people got scared when the outlaw came out that, oh, you can't do this buy anymore. You know, you can't buy sheriffs on these second rounds anymore because the outlaw exists.
No, nemůžeš.
Most people don't buy an outlaw, so it's not a big problem. And the other thing I will say...
No, nesouhlasím. Já čekám, co dobu kam budu přes jeho ten, ale nesouhlasím, kam tak na ataku nebudeš kupovat outlaw, ale jinak na defendu mají vždycky outlaw, však no to minulý měli. Ok, tohle to actually L. Tohle actually L, co tady japnul, to jako japnul, aby se mu to hodilo. Však no má doslova ten Profek měl outlaw. Outlaw actually zničilo metu a odebralo z té hry dost velkou část zábavnosti, protože na druhý kolo prostě nemůžeš nic koupit. Doslova, když si jako aby nenatrvalo to třetí. Takže tady to skip.
Rounds that we've seen as well, the Brim Molly and utility right here, right? This basically gets another kill on Alexiiik.
Molly insane, no?
Brim Molly alone. The buying utility is still important because you never know in that second round when you'll be in a good situation. And the difference with utility than buying, say, a gun is that if you're not having a good round, if you lose the first couple of kills, just don't use it, right? And then you still have it for the next round.
Jo, to je od bety, to pravidlo, že jako si koupíte utilitu a buď ji použijete, když to bude dobrá situačka, nebo si ji necháte, to jako doufám, že všichni provozujete. A má tady krabici, co mám já nahoře.
So, utility, second round, still buy it. So let's look at our third example here. We're now on Abyss, and would you take a look what gun is in the hand of Element here? Oh look. The Marshal.
I believe so. They were just a little over eager, I suppose. Although
I guess
it is the fact that they had lost so much control. Like the fact that the defenders had pushed all the way into spawn, that's where you just start to get a little antsy and you want to make a bold off rip, mid peak, spots out there's a player there, loses his head for the trouble.
So you see the power of the Marshal again there right at the start of the round. And the thing is, of course, if you have a Marshal or a Sheriff or something like that, the truth is you can then just pick up the gun if that player dies.
Hudbičku, ale tam nasadil jako z Far Cry 1.
Oh, for now at least. Some awkward fights, Daddy. Okay, to get away with here.
Každý si hraje na hrdinu tady, ale mě to vůbec nelepilo. Mě to vůbec nikomu nelepilo, to je prostě...
It's going to force him all the way back, and look at where the rest of the defenders are. They are so far away, completely
všichni po jednom nějak se tam to...
Is this going to be the third time this series the Go Next have won the pistol and lost round 2?
It very well could be. CGN are able to do so much in these rounds, and it looks like they're about to do so much more. Vince, damage done, and it's an easy follow-up. Anguist able to drop Minny and leave Zeke all by his lonesome 3 players.
Zeke prostě outlaw teďko. Předtím scoutka jako outlaw. Zrovna s iniciátorama, kámo. Na tuhle těch mapách. Kdyby to byl Breeze třeba lesovou, ale...
This time we have a buy that, you know, is again, you know, a bit more aggressive.
Maršalka je insane, no.
But again, they
ale actually vyslali. Ano, a jak říkal, Outlaw se nekupuje. Outlaw v dalším klipu. Předtím zase byl Outlaw, teďko zase Outlaw, ale Outlaw se nekupuje, samozřejmě.
Outlaw. Again though, our opponents, this time a different opponent, has also bought a Marshal, as you can see, and they've actually just flipped that over. So the first guy died here with his Marshal. This has now been picked up by the Viper, so again we're looking at that. And you could argue here that, you know, they're being pretty passive here, our Go Next, right? They're kind of sitting back, letting the spike be planted here on B, they're behind.
Dobrá scéna, co má udělanou, má scénu, že se mu přepne prostě kamerka do rohu a zoomne se mu minimapa a je to furt live.
Or whatever. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Their main mistake, I think, comes in just now, is that they're letting the spike go down, right? So our whole plan this round...
Souhlasím, no, že to neměli plantnout.
Build, trying to get his own tags for
Someone will come and
that was the outlaw that he had in his pocket, and while going up will probably be allowed for that to get picked up. But it's not as cut and dry as you would think so far. still taking their time. Go next like to look at all the minor details, pay attention and
4 furt ale hodně vynebl.
cross the T's and look at this. It looks like they're not going to get a chance.
Dal 2 lidi klasikem za tou volou. Jako to jsou úplně next level insane kola od těch enemáků, co hrajou to jako mým přijde.
And this final one, they just decide, F it, we're just gonna run to B. And again, normally you would say this is not a great idea. You actually see that they went for everyone buy as much as you can. We are not losing this round. There is no way we are losing this second round, right? We are sick of losing these rounds with everyone full buy.
Tohle bylo nejhorší kolo by far, tohle kolo bylo nejhorší by far.
We don't care, right? And we're just going to run B. Problem is, of course, they ran into a stack.
But for the most part, I would say this game has been him.
Big stack towards the B side. Playing off Wacky's contact information towards B.
Perfekt zase minus, Alešek na klasik.
Okay, so I just paused it there.
3v2.
Initially you probably thought, oh no, they're in a lot of trouble. And you know that they lose this round. But still, they actually dealt with it. Okay, we got most of these.
3v2, Cčka je tam sama prostě a tady dostane right click do mainu.
Stage here, we're in a 3v1 here against just the Sage and the Killjoy still miles away with just a classic, right? But somehow they are going to lose this round, and sometimes your opponent just pops off.
Gets them into the spot that they were looking for. Kaden trying to stick around.
Proč ten nedostal třeba ten kajomolík? Proč ten nehodil ten kajomolík nebo něco? Proč nepěkli spolu jednu stranu? Cokoliv. Minny tady dostala hroznou sračku, to je dostala instading. Co vidím v chatu, k čemu slouží kondicionér, co ti to udělá zlo sama? OK. Řekni mi, že jsi muž, ani bys mi řekl, že jsi muž.
So congratulations, Go Next, for your achievement there of doing something so unlikely. For the rest of the day, I will now be flipping this coin to see if I can get 17 heads in a row. Wish me luck. Tails.
Jo, takže tady to je jakoby důvod, proč, jeden z hlavních důvodů, proč Go Next prohráli tak, jak prohráli. Tohle musel být na mental tak šílený, že jako nikomu bych to nepřál. Pěkný videjko od Thinking Man's Valorant. Tímto bych uzavřel, no tímto se uzavřel tým Go Next. Uvidíme, kam budou pokračovat dál, chlapáci. Jdeme hrát.